Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
We're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm really sore.
Yeah.
I was wearing armor at the Michigan Renaissance Festival.
Yes, a very good Renaissance festival. As a connoisseur of Renaissance festivals, not really. I've been to two.
Yeah.
But this is by far the better of the two.
Yeah. No, I've definitely heard that the Michigan Renaissance Festival is definitely it's up there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm just a little sore around the edges, so wearing armor.
Yeah.
But how about yourself?
Pretty good. I did not go with you to the Renaissance Festival yesterday. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I thought the weather was going to be bad, and I was tired, and I had stuff to do. So
you got some work done though.
Yeah. My arcade cabinet is almost the cabinet itself is done.
Yeah.
I just need to do all the wiring and set up the computer, but it's done. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Gabe showed me earlier. But yeah, the physical thing itself is pretty much done, and you just gotta put the games in it.
Yeah.
And we can play it.
Yeah. Hopefully we can play it within the next few weeks.
Sweet.
Yeah. Your armor looks really good.
Thank you. It cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something I invested over years and years, but it was like, I don't know. There was just one year I saw it it was hanging up in the leather shop. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it was definitely one of those, that's going to be really expensive. I really like that though. And then the guy saw me looking at it, and I was like, I want to try that on. And he's like, all right. And he's just got that look in his eye yes.
You can see the dollar signs rolling behind his eyes.
Yes. I mean, it was because they were throwing more and more stuff on me when I first put it on.
Of course.
And there's a guy in the background there was a guy behind the counter with a calculator what can we sell? I didn't buy all of it at once, but I definitely got the big the main chest piece and shoulder pads and stuff like that. And then I was hyperventilating afterwards. I'm like, I just spent a lot of money on basically a toy.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's lasted me years,
and like I said, it looks really good.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm pretty happy with it.
Your cloak, you put pictures up of you and Dave with your cloaks billowing in the wind.
Yeah, we were walking up the hill, and the wind was hitting us just right, and so yeah. That cloak actually gets more compliments than the armor, and that cloak was made by my sister for less than $20.
That's always the way it is.
Yeah, but she's very proud. She's very proud of that. But yeah. I do like that cloak because that's probably the first piece I actually got. Cool. That started that outfit was the cloak she got me.
Yeah. I have when I lived in Tennessee, I had a bunch of friends that played a game called Dagger Here, which is a foam sword fighting game.
Sure.
And a lot of them wore leather armor. But it was functional. It was for the game because the game has rules on if you get hit with this type of sword in this area, and then if you wear armor, and then there's rules on what constitutes as armor, then you have more protection when you're playing the game. And so I had a lot of friends that did have armor, but like I said, it was more functional than it was decorative. So they might take some measures to make it look good, but it didn't look as good as yours. And they would wear it to Renfest and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely more decorative than functional because like I said, I'm really sore. Although wearing armor is never comfortable.
Right.
It's just supposed to protect you or look good.
Yeah.
So
all right. So do you want to go ahead and get into the episode here?
Sure.
Okay.
Gabe, I just realized that there's a stuffed dragon behind you.
There is a stuffed dragon. I had to move him the other day.
He has a horde of tiny little stuffed animals.
You know what, Jeff?
What's that?
You just noticed the dragon's horde.
Stop it. Put a picture of that in the show notes or something.
Yeah, sure. All right. So the item today was submitted by Jake, the Gossip Golem, once again. And this item is called Mummer's Weapon. He actually provided a link. He said it was a slightly modified version of an item somebody else made. But regardless, this is a good item. So this is an item that requires attunement, similar to the Mask of Many Friends from last week. This is a magical weapon that's found in the form of an empty sheath, scabbard, belt, or strap with a loop or clasp for a weapon, player's choice. So this is just a sheath. Now, while it remains empty, A creature who understands the nature of the item may make a motion as if they were drawing a weapon from it, drawing forth an invisible weapon. The weapon functions as a normal weapon of its type, except that it inflicts psychic damage and cannot be seen by anyone other than the wielder and the target creature.
Ooh.
Creatures reduced to 0 HP by a mummer's weapon are always rendered unconscious and not killed. If an unattuned user attempts to draw a mummer's weapon, it will appear and feel as if nothing is there. If the user throws a mummer's weapon, it must be retrieved as normal before it can be used again. So, not very complicated of an item. It's basically, you have like a weapon that only you can see or feel, and also the target can see and feel it. And that's
really
it.
Cool.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool that the target sees it, but they probably only see it like when they're being struck by it. So they're just like, ah, like,
yes.
So you're just like kind of like swinging your arm like crazy, and they're like, what is he doing? Ow, my psychic.
You know what this makes me think of? Not necessarily a specific person in it, but have you seen the movie Mystery Men?
Yes.
Oh, of course you have. So in that movie, there's a couple characters in particular that like people kind of doubt their ability. In particular, the main character, Mr. Furious.
Right, yeah.
He has this superpower, we're using air quotes here, this superpower where when he gets really angry, he like gets really strong.
Yeah.
Except through the movie, like people's anecdotes and whatnot make you think that he just gets angry. He doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah, it's Ben Stiller and he gets angry.
And so like in that movie, there's, nobody really thinks he has this power, but then, spoiler alert, there is a point near the end where like something does make him angry and he actually does become really strong because of it. But I'm picturing a character having this, and everybody else in the group, and even like maybe he has a reputation of like not being armed, and like he tells everybody he has a weapon, but like nobody can see it. Nobody has ever seen any evidence, but he keeps telling you, no, this is a deadly weapon. I could use it on you if I wanted to, but I don't want to.
Oh my gosh. And because it only does psychic damage and like it never kills anybody, like even if they like they find him like with a defeated foe in front of him.
Yes.
Like he's like, see, I told you I had a weapon, and they're like, he has no damage on him.
Yes.
He's not even dead.
Exactly. So like, yeah. And then another Mystery Men example was the character played by Kenan Thompson or Kel Mitchell. He's Kel Mitchell. Played by Kel Mitchell. He has the ability to turn invisible.
Right.
However, it only works when nobody is watching him, including himself.
Right.
So nobody can ever see that he's invisible, but he says like, you can feel it. And so
I
again,
just know that I'm invisible.
Right. So through the whole movie, everybody's like, okay, yeah, sure, you can turn invisible. Okay. But then again, spoiler alert, there is a point in the movie where he does turn invisible, but nobody sees it.
Right. Yeah.
And so
I think he just uses it to get past like a motion sensor.
Exactly.
Which isn't an observer. It's just a sensor.
Right. And so yeah, just with the same type of thing. Yeah, I'm loving the idea of a character that has this weapon and he claims it's a really powerful weapon, but nobody believes him. And there's never been any evidence that it actually exists. But he does.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yes.
I would like a character in a party to have a weapon that doesn't kill. Like, that's a cool thing.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
It's good for taking somebody for questioning, or if somebody just doesn't want to deal lethal damage.
Right. I think we talked a few weeks ago about part of my point about whatever the question was I was talking about like how it's important for the game to make it easy for you not to kill people.
Yeah. And
so I think it was when we were talking about like monsters that are the players think are evil.
Yeah, I think so. That might have been it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so it is important for the game to let you be non-lethal because if you're just going around killing everything and the game discourages you from doing that, then it's just adding to the stereotype of the murder hobo. And
right, yeah.
When playing a game like this, people are rarely going to disadvantage themselves if it doesn't benefit them. And it's often hard to illustrate the benefits of leaving somebody alive.
Yeah, because it's in 4th or 5th edition where it's just if you down somebody, you choose whether or not you've killed them or not.
Yeah, I guess in 5th edition, only certain things, like you can only do that with a melee weapon. You can't do it with a spell or a ranged attack unless the spell or ranged attack says so.
But still, that's miles ahead of like taking a -4 and having to do like
-4.
You had to put them into like negatives equal to like their like half their hit points or something like that.
I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but like it was such a, and well, if they received any magical healing whatsoever, non-magical or non-lethal damage just completely went away.
Right, yeah.
So like you could be doing all your work to like knock someone out and have them on Slumber's door, and then the enemy cleric could just be like, oh, here's 1 hit point, and then they're back to full.
Yeah.
So yeah, making it easier to leave people alive is a good thing, and I think this weapon encourages that.
Plus, yeah, having that choice kind of helps with like character development and stuff like that.
Yes.
What, like, because I think the first time you asked me that the last time we played, I was like, do I want to kill this guy?
Maybe I do. I wouldn't have thought of that.
I think I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this is a really cool item. I would love to give this to a player and see what they do with it. Or to introduce an NPC that has it.
Right, yeah, sure. He just has an empty scabbard and they're like, this guy is...
I introduced an NPC in the 5th edition game I ran a couple years ago that he had a scabbard but no sword. And there was, maybe going to be some story about that somewhere down the line if you guys ever met him again. But you could introduce a guy that has a scabbard but no weapon, and then when people ask him about it, he's like, oh, it's got a weapon, see? Look at it, it's right there. And they're like, yeah. Okay, buddy. Sure. Yeah. Anyway, I think that will do it for the Dragon's Hoard. If anybody wanted to submit Dragon's Hoard items, or if they would like to submit questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre.
Oh, yeah.
How would they do so, Jeff?
They can send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Sounds good. Now, before we go on, I just want to remind everybody to check out the guys over at Crit Academy. We are all members of the Crit Nation Fellowship. So check them out. They're a very, very good podcast. They release, new and reusable content for everybody. They're really, really good. I was on an episode of that, episode 38, I think. And, if you wanted to be on there, Jeff, you probably could if you wanted to. You'd probably let them know.
Yeah, I might have to shoot them an email.
Sure. I've been thinking a little bit about other kinds of like guests that we could have on,
sure,
as well as like other podcasts that maybe like I could guest on.
Okay,
so I might within the next few weeks try to organize getting some other people on, because
try to reach out.
Exactly, yeah. Getting more people on here, getting us out there. I think building like a web of contacts and friends and everything would be really cool.
Yeah, cool. More opportunities to maybe finally get to play a game.
Yeah, maybe. That's, I was telling you off mic about there might be some things shaken up with my job pretty soon.
Oh, right. Scheduling.
Hopefully nothing bad, but like my schedule might change.
Right.
If, for example, I were to end up getting like laid off for a couple of weeks, which I mean is a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen. But if I did, I was thinking, well, one of the upsides is we could play some D&D during that time.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So we'll see. We'll see how my schedule changes and make the best of whatever happens. Another thing I want to remind everybody about is our partnership with Audible. So if you go to audibletrial.com/conflict, you can get yourself a free audiobook, free month of their service, and then free if you continue the service. It costs money every month, but you get an automatic audiobook every month, and then you also can you get a discount on any additional books you want to buy.
Yeah.
Do you have a book you want to recommend?
Well, I've been actually finally got myself a copy on Audible of the first book of the Game of Thrones series.
Okay, that's actually the only one that I've listened to.
Yeah,
actually.
Okay, Skylar has it on her Audible account. She has a few of the books on there, and she really likes the narrator, so she made sure to get those. Narrator's pretty good. I forget his name, and she'll be mad at me for forgetting it. But it's good. It's really good. I've seen all of the show so far. I'm not gonna spoil anything.
I haven't seen any of the show.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, but the show's been very fun to watch. Things have definitely gotten weird ever since they gotten past where the books are.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that.
But there's, and Skylar's always talking about the differences between the show and the books and stuff, and so I figured I might as well like get started on listening to all the books, and like the next one doesn't come out for a little while because he's still working on it or something. So
sure.
But yeah, that's definitely one I recommend because it is a good story. It is very interesting. And I don't know if you like the show, you would definitely like the books.
Sure. If I'm not mistaken, I believe, do you know how George R.R. Martin got into writing or how he like got started coming up with all of like the stuff that he was going to be writing.
I feel like I might have heard at one point, but I can't remember.
He apparently had a bunch of pet turtles when he was a kid.
What? No.
I mean, this is not going to be a great story.
That sounds familiar.
He had a bunch of pet turtles and they all kept dying.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm sure it was just like natural causes or sickness or whatever, but like he in his mind as a kid, he would start coming up with all of these stories about like, oh, well, this turtle was plotting to kill that one. It was having an affair with this other one or whatever.
Well, I know he's done a lot of like, I think, doesn't he does a lot of like sci-fi writing, I think.
Oh, does he?
I want to say most of his first books are a bunch of like sci-fi stuff, but then he like that I want to I'm pretty sure Game of Thrones is like his first delve into more of a fantasy side.
Interesting.
Of things, but that's all something that's all like tiny little things I glean from Skylar's always watching like YouTube videos on the Game of Thrones like theories and stuff like that. So I'll always hear a little bit here and there.
Okay.
But
cool.
But yeah, go if you go to audibletrial.com/conflict, you can start listening to Game of Thrones right now.
Cool. All for free. You could get it and then cancel, and then you'd still have the audiobook forever.
Yep.
All right, cool. Then I guess you want to get into some questions?
Sure. Let's get going.
All right.
Our first question comes from Big Hairy Belly. This was on Reddit. And the belly asks, how do you go about creating a pantheon?
Yes.
So like a pantheon of deities.
Yeah. So as anybody who has tried to create a campaign world will be able to tell you, I'm sure it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Our good friend Chris, I've been talking with him recently. He's working on building his own game world.
Nice.
And like he was telling me, the main story or like the main history was easy enough to come up with, but then like all the little details, that's where the real difficulty comes from. And so, he's been like bouncing ideas off me and stuff. And some ways got is really, really good.
Cool.
But so I tried to create a campaign world a few years ago for this 5th edition campaign we did shortly after 5th edition came out. And although I still have all the content I created, we haven't really done anything with that in a while. And I don't know when the next time is I will. But one of the things that I'm more proud of, I guess, of the campaign world that I came up with was a pantheon that I created, because I really like deities in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I like playing characters who worship a deity because I feel like it gives your character something that they're connected to. Usually gives them some sort of an organization that they can call upon for help. And so I like, since that's something that I as a player like to make use out of, I figured I would put a lot of work into making something that the players could then use.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was the 3rd edition Deities and Demigods was the first Dungeons and Dragons book I ever actually owned.
There you go. That is a good book.
Yeah. I think maybe I might have had a player's handbook before that, but I'm pretty sure I borrowed Steven's. So
okay.
I think the first one I actually physically bought and owned was the Deities and Demigods one. Because I think that was like right before like Steve was gonna like stay over for the weekend or something like that, and we were like, we gotta get this new book, or we're gonna try. And so of course I'm pretty sure we tried to make our own deities or something.
Sure, yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite books in 3rd edition, because I loved how it had the stats for like Norse gods and Egyptian gods. I remember Jay loved the idea of like Thor's write-up, because like, okay, short little tangent, but in 3rd edition when you had a magic weapon, you could have the magic weapon be like +1 up to +5. So +5 was the highest it could go before the Epic Level Handbook, which was not out at the time. So +5, but then you could have an additional +5's worth of enhancements. Or like basically you had a maximum of an effective +10. So you could have a +5 Vorpal sword, Vorpal being the equivalent of a +5.
Right.
So that would be a +10. Or you could have a +1 Vorpal flaming, thundering, mighty cleaving sword or something. And so that would be like, I think that's like an effective +10 or something like that. Yeah. So you could have like a bunch of enchantments if you had a lower bonus. In Thor's write-up, his weapon, which is Mjolnir, was like, it was a +5 throwing, returning, thundering, it was literally like a +20 or something. It had so many additional things, way beyond what players were allowed to do.
Sure.
And so not only was that cool because, it's a deity, so it clearly breaks the rules of what you're allowed to do as a player, but it's just hilarious trying to read this like It's almost like a 4-sentence paragraph of just enchantments for this weapon. So that was always a lot of fun. And so I remember, I think Jay's character might have worshipped Thor, although we didn't really have a campaign world at that time.
Yeah, maybe Jay always really liked Thor.
Yes. And so anyway, so I really like deities. You know, like you were saying, the Deities and Demigods book was a very formative thing for me and you. So when coming up with a pantheon, you know, what are some ways that you can do that? Now, what I did, I kind of I like for deities to have sort of a theme.
Sure, yeah.
In Eberron, for example, there's like 12 gods. In Eberron, there's a lot of things that are 12, but then there's like a hidden 13th one. Like there's like the 12 dragon mark houses, but then there's like one of the dragon mark houses like split off, so that's like sort of the 13th one. And then the deities are kind of the same way. There's like, I want to say like the 6 good deities, which some people worship as a whole. It's called the sovereign host, I think. And then there's like the 6 evil deities. The name of what their pantheon is called escapes me. And then I want to say one of the gods was like used to be a god, but then died and then came back as an undead god or something. So like that's the 13th little hidden one. So in Eberron, you know, that's sort of like there's like the 6 good ones and the 6 bad ones.
Yeah.
And
then the one
crazy one, exactly. So what I tried to do was, in Faerun, their theme is just like everything.
Yes.
Worship all the gods.
They're all inclusive.
Exactly. So what I did, what I did was I planned my deities around the 9 alignments. Because I like the alignments.
Yeah.
I think that I probably use them differently than a lot of people do, but I like them to be an existent part of the concept of the game.
Yeah. The 9 alignments is definitely a really good structure for this sort of thing.
Yes. So like I have 3 good deities. One is, I mean, players are not required to be this alignment to worship them or even to be a cleric of them.
Sure.
But, you know, that god's ethos is based around kind of what you'd expect from that alignment. So there's the lawful good, the goddess of law and community and like, you know, building communities and stuff. Then there is the neutral good, god of light and healing. And then the chaotic good, god of travel, like travel and nature. And then I have gods of neutrality. So there is the lawful neutral god of self-discipline and hand-to-hand combat. So he's like a monk.
Sure.
Then there's the true neutral god of magic, which was once a human, or not a human, an elf, an elven mortal who ascended to divinity. And then there is the chaotic neutral god of nature and change. And then the evil gods, there is the lawful evil goddess of tyranny and conquest. And then there's a neutral evil god of like knowledge and undeath. And then the chaotic evil god of fire and destruction. So like I picked, one for each alignment. And then once I came up with, an idea of like each one for each alignment, then I kind of came up with little like connections between them. So for example, Detroya, the goddess of community and law, is the sister of Azimuth, the god of nature, who, according to the lore that I came up with, once had a sibling who was killed in a fire and then came back as the god of fire and destruction. And then also I created, the god of light, the neutral good god of light and healing is the direct opposite of the neutral evil god of undeath. And so the two of them are constantly fighting. And so, I came up with little things between them all. And then I also, because, I figured those aren't going to cover every base as far as what a player would need. Because, if you're playing a cleric, you want to be able to play the kind of cleric you want. And if there isn't really a deity that, is all about the portfolio that you want to worship, then, you might not do that. So I wanted to be able to include everything, and I still haven't included everything. But in addition to those 9 deities, I came up with a bunch of like minor deities. So I have like a god of stealth and assassins. I have a goddess of luck. There's a god of like animals and curiousness. And the idea is that this god, it's called Terrell the Curious, was originally the rat familiar of the archmage who ascended to become the god of magic. Yes. So so his familiar became divine as well, but as a minor deity rather than a major deity. And this particular god doesn't really have a church of its own, but in every church to Kalas, the god of magic, there will probably also be a shrine to Terrell the Curious.
It's like that makes me think of a bunch of like wizard familiars like go off on a Sunday and like go into like a tiny church.
Yes. Or there's like a bunch of there's like rats and badgers all like meeting in a little tiny underground burrow.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of rats and like lizards and owls, and then owls are like trying to get at the rats.
Yes. I'll provide a link to I have a Wikidot site that I made a long time ago for that campaign. I'll provide a link to the deities page for anybody who wants to see it.
Yeah.
But because I won't really go super in depth on any of these because, nobody wants to just sit and listen to me talk about that. So you want to try to think what's a sort of a theme that you can give your deities. And you don't have to have a theme, but I just think that it's just better if you do, because then it feels like they're all part of the same whole.
Yeah. I feel like, you should have like a clear purpose for each deity, even if that purpose itself isn't like one specific thing.
Yeah, it can be very broad.
Yeah, but just the deities that you come up with could be specifically for like the story that you're trying to tell in your campaign world or something. Like you use them as tools. It's kind of a cheat, but not really. Not in D&D, not really.
In D&D, either everything's a cheat or nothing is a cheat.
Exactly. So you're using the rules to tell this to fit to the story and tell the story the way you want it.
Yeah.
So if you feel like there should be this, there should be somebody who's kind of in control of like nature or something like that. Like you make a nature deity, It's like, or you can have more specific, like, there's a goddess of forests and a god of the wind or something.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that I do feel like is lacking from my own Pantheon, is that I don't really have like gods of specific like elements. I mean, there aren't really domains of elements. When I made this, I did kind of base it around the 5th edition domains, because there were. In 3rd edition, there were like a billion domains. Yeah. There was a domain for everything. In 5th edition, there's very few. And so I was like, okay, if I were to make this deity and I want to give them like 2 domains, what are 2 domains that would fit? And if there weren't 2 domains that would fit, I would try to tweak the deity a little bit to fit that. So this was very much made with 5th edition in mind.
Sure.
In 3rd edition, there were domains of like every element. There would be a fire domain, a water domain, a wind domain, an earth domain. There's probably like an acid domain out there. I don't know. And so it occurred to me, like, if someone wanted to play a cleric in this campaign world that was like really elementally themed, who would they worship? And at the moment, there isn't one. So, if I were to run this campaign world again, I do have some other ideas that I would add in that I haven't necessarily come up with concrete stuff for. There's actually one deity that I don't have on this page that I made up because in our Shackled City campaign, Steve had an idea for a deity he wanted to worship that wasn't in my Pantheon.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so I came up with one that he thought was really cool. It is very much inspired by Artorias and Sif from Dark Souls. And one little thing, the guy that came to our live show the other week.
Oh, yeah.
He mentioned to us that his eyes kind of glaze over whenever we talk about Dark Souls. So I apologize. I apologize, Jack.
I forgot about that.
But I won't go into it too much. But basically, Artorias and Sif were these. It was this knight and his wolf companion.
Oh, right.
And so I took the idea of that and the deity in particular in this campaign world. The name is escaping me. I have it written down somewhere, but the idea of the deity is that it is not one deity that you're worshiping. It is 2 deities. And it's not even that you're worshiping the deities themselves. You're worshiping the bond between those 2.
Oh.
And so like there are different interpretations. Here's one thing. I tried to make these deities, for reasons I'll get to in just a few minutes, I tried to make these deities as nebulous as possible.
Sure.
Like there's very little that is tied down. Anything of like specific details you learn about them is like tales say this, stories say this. So with this other deity, some stories say that the deity, that the two beings were a knight and his wolf companion. Other people say that it was a man and woman that were in love. Some stories, the genders of the 2 people aren't even distinct. And some of them, the one of them is the male and the other is the female. In other stories, it's the other way around, and so on. And so I wanted this to be a deity that anybody who values a connection with another person or persons could look to for guidance. And so, so I think that was a neat concept that was not originally, something that was part of like the original Pantheon.
Sure.
But I'm glad that I added it, and I'm looking forward to, someday using the campaign again so that I can like really flesh that out.
And that's a good point, because you could make a deity that is more just an idea than a physical thing. You could have a deity that like has like a physical form and like maybe comes down and does stuff from time to time, or throws down an avatar from now and again, or something like that. You don't need to have a stat block like Thor.
Yes, and I would actually say deities and demigods, to an extent, is probably a little bit harmful to the genre.
Sure.
Now, of course, it's up for debate. Everybody's going to feel differently about this, but if there is a stat block, that means it can be killed.
Yeah.
If it has this many hit points, a player is going to make a character that is able to deal that many hit points.
Because I believe this is a story you've told or something like that, where like this sounds true, where you looked at a stat block for a deity or something and said, this guy can't be killed. And Chris looked at it and said, yeah, I can.
That sounds like something that would have happened. It sounds like an exchange between me and Chris.
Yeah.
But like if you're a player, or if you're a DM and you show a player the stats for this like legendary monster, that player is going to, is very likely going to want to fight and kill that monster.
Right.
For some groups, for some DMs, that's fine. That's what the game is all about. The game is about, overcoming unbelievable challenges.
Sure.
A lot of DMs, however, feel differently. They feel you cannot kill a god. The gods you are like literally an ant compared to the god. And so in a lot of games, DMs do not like gods having stats.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I think there's a place for either one.
I think anybody could have like different styles of pantheons and stuff like that, where like maybe the gods themselves are mortal. Yeah. And if you kill them, you take their place in some way or something like that.
That could be. That is a part of a lot of fiction out there. This is not the greatest example, but the God of War series is literally the main character hates Ares, the Greek god of war. Yeah. So he goes on a journey to eventually fight and kill Ares, and then becomes, at the end of the first game, becomes the next god of war.
Right.
So like...
And then spoilers, it gets like the power gets taken him away from him.
Beginning of God of War 2 is so stupid. Zeus is mad at Kratos for killing Ares, despite the fact that in the first game, Zeus helped Kratos fight and kill Ares.
Yeah, but Zeus is a jerk.
Yeah.
Zeus in anyone's story, Zeus always ends up being
that's a good point.
He's like the worst person.
That's actually a very good point for this. I would recommend for anybody who is going to be making a pantheon, anyone who's making their own deities, give them flaws, because in, everything outside of, I guess I would say, Judeo-Christian mythology, gods are screwed up.
Yeah, for sure.
They are rarely universally benevolent. They are rarely perfect. They are typically there to like just do their own thing, and if you get in the way, sucks to be you. You're a puny little mortal. You're gonna lose.
Yeah. So beyond more modern versions of them, like the Greek gods, like Hades and Zeus. Like Hades is, I feel like Hades isn't as bad as Zeus is.
Yeah.
Zeus. I think Zeus rapes people.
Zeus rapes everybody. He freaking turned into a swan so that he could rape a woman as a swan. I'm not making that up. That's a thing.
Yeah. So flaws are. It's interesting. It's interesting for a deity to have a flaw. That's like, it might not be one that most people or anybody really knows about other than the deities themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with these Greek stories, we are looking at the Greek stories like thousands of years later. I doubt that it was common knowledge back in ancient Greece that, Zeus turned into a swan and raped somebody.
Yeah, sure.
So give your gods flaws, make them, if you just make them a personification of a single concept, that's fine. If that's what you're going for, that's fine. But it makes a much more interesting situation. If you are making them to be beings that the players can interact with, if they exist in the world outside of just granting spells for the players, it is more interesting for the story if they have personalities, if they have quirks about themselves. Now, I sort of alluded to something earlier. In my campaign world, these are going to be some spoilers for anybody who is ever going to play in one of my games, or anybody who ever reads my fiction, which I very well may never actually come out with.
All right, hold on. I'll plug my ears. La 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 la.
Several minutes later.
La 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 la.
And so then they all died.
Okay.
No, so, well, how spoily should I get for this thing that nobody is ever going to?
You go
Okay.
ahead.
When I started creating this game world, it was for a novel that I was writing. It was like, this is the world that my novel takes place in. And then I mentioned before, I was going to run the players through like the story of my novel. So then I could kind of get an idea of like what works in the game, what works in the novel, and back and forth.
Sure.
Well, I like the idea of the gods' mythology, or the gods, like, you know, what people know about them being unreliable. Because in the real world, if you look at these stories of like the Greek gods, we're looking at the, you know, the aggregated collection of stories, and like some of them are just go straight completely contrary to other ones. Some of them say Zeus is benevolent. Some of them say Zeus rapes people as a swan. And so I like how there are like conflicting stories, and I like how you don't really know exactly what's going on. Now, in my campaign world, I mentioned that all of the gods, you just says like stories say this and stories say that. Now, I don't know exactly how closely I want to stick to this, but my original idea for these gods was that none of them exist. When I first, I mean, I've evolved some of them since then, but my original idea was I want to make an entire pantheon that people get spells from, yet none of the gods are real. All of them exist solely in the stories that people tell about them.
Sure.
You don't get your powers from the god themselves. You get your powers from your devotion to what that god stands for, which is something that Eberron did. Like Eberron, like I said, had those 6 good deities, 6 bad deities, but it was very explicit in the book. People don't get their spells from these deities. These deities might not actually exist. They get them. You could literally worship the party's paladin. Or not the party. You could worship the party's fighter, anybody in the party. And if your devotion to the party's fighter is high enough, you get spells according to your devotion to them and what you believe they stand for. So I wanted to go with that. I wanted to make the whole point of this campaign was moral ambiguity. I wanted the players to question, the players and the readers to question, is any of this reliable? Should I be relying on what other people tell me to do? And so, again, when I was creating all these things, I wanted to come up with stories for each deity, and I wanted to have those stories intertwined because these are stories that people are telling each other about, you know, about whatever. But originally I was going to have the final realization or whatever be that, oh my God, none of these exist. Like, these are just fiction.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of, actually? Like the collection of stories.
What's that?
Reminds me of all the Chuck Norris jokes.
Yes.
Like there's the book there was a book of them we found at a bookstore once. It was just a book of Chuck Norris jokes.
Yeah.
It's just like each page was just a different, like, you know, did you know that Chuck Norris has a fist under his beard
under
or
his
something?
beard, yes. Did you know that Chuck Norris started a fire by rubbing 2 ice cubes together? Jeff, what happens when an unstoppable force hits an immovable object?
What's that?
We don't know because there's only one Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is so fast, he can run around the planet and kick himself in the back of the head.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Yes, me too. So this is like a big secret for this campaign world, but I think it's really, really cool. Do you want to hear like a big secret for the world that I've created?
Sure.
Okay. So there's these two churches, the church of Deluz, the god of the light, and then Moreth, the god of darkness.
Okay.
So like the god of goodness and the god of evil and undeath. The two churches have been at war for, generations. Like as long back as anybody knows, the two churches have been fighting each other. And like if you go into one of the churches, there will be like a painting of the two gods fighting. And there's Deleuze, who's like this long bearded man in a robe with this giant two-handed sword composed entirely of pure light. And then he's fighting Moreth, which is this like desiccated demon looking dude and like black armor that blends in with the darkness. And he's using these two daggers that are made out of like pure dark. And so like, that's like an iconic image for both of these churches, that like these two gods in this endless fight against each other. Well, at some point in the novel or some point in the campaign or whatever, somehow the players or the readers would find out that the two churches both based their deities off of the same person. So like the legend about Deleuze, the god of light, was based on the same person that the legend about Moreth, the god of dark, was based on. And so like, and spoiler alert, this individual is still out there. So I thought this was a neat idea, that like the legends about these gods could be so skewed that these two diametrically opposed deities were originally based on the same being. So I thought that was a really neat touch.
Yeah.
I would have liked to someday make it happen or whatever, but maybe someday. Now, just one thing I want to mention is that if when I put this list up, if anyone wants to look at it, most, if not all, of the names on the list, or not, of the list of deities, most of the deities are named after characters that either I have played or that my friends have played in D&D and similar games. For example, Harip, the god of like hand-to-hand combat, the lawful neutral guy, is based on my monk character Harip.
Sure.
Kalas, the archmage, the god of magic, is based on an archmage or an elven wizard I played named Kalas. Azimuth, the god of transformation, was based on a character you played in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Although there's a mistake, because I was picturing your druid character when in truth Azimuth was your rogue character.
Sure.
Terrace was your druid character.
Yes.
So that was my mistake there. So a lot, and like Deleuze, the god of light, was based on Jay's paladin Deleuze, which means the light.
Sure.
Apparently. So yeah, I like coming up with names, but I am not above using the names of old D&D characters and such.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I'll try to wrap this one up, but if you're going to make a Pantheon, I recommend choosing a theme. And then once you have a theme, try and think of what types of characters you think people would play, and then make deities that fit, usable archetypes. So like if they fit an archetype that a player might use, that's a good thing. And then you want to try and find ways, you want there to be lore regarding your deities. The more interesting the deities are, the more likely people are to use them.
Yeah.
If your deities, like I said, are all just like a personification of a concept, that's all cool, I guess. But like, who's gonna actually devote a character to them aside from a cleric? If someone isn't playing a cleric, if they're playing like a fighter, yeah, sure, I guess I'll worship the god of fighting.
Yeah, because in character sheets, there's usually a slot to put your deity in there.
Yeah.
Like, but like other than paladins and clerics, like most like characters don't really have a mechanical need for it.
Exactly. So if you want to make players interested enough in your deities to make them write down that deity on their character sheet, that means you've succeeded.
A barbarian who is devoted to a deity sounds like a fun character to play. Yeah, like they scream the deity's name every time they go into a rage.
Exactly. Like if I was a DM and a player did that, I would shake my fist up I would do a fist pump, because I think that is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want your players to be interested in your deities. So don't just be like, oh, there's a god of fighting.
the god of fighters.
Exactly. Like you want to make them as interesting and as connected as possible. Because if you worship the god of fighting, but then you know that the god of fighting is like in love with the goddess of ice or something, then whenever you're like in a frozen tundra, you're going to be like, oh man, I love this place. This is connected to what my deity wants. If I can get something good from here, my deity might reward me for it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a cleric. So like that's a facet of character creation that I would say most people don't use.
Yeah.
And
I definitely overlook it.
Yeah. I was meant to ask you, have you ever played a religious character in D&D?
Not not that I've put to memory.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I've played several divine characters. So
Oh, wow.
well, I mean, like clerics and such.
Oh, okay.
So like I have made a lot that do worship a deity, but more often than not, I would say I do try to choose at least a deity to revere at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, that definitely adds to a character and to a campaign.
Yeah. I think it's something that can definitely be a good thing to add to a campaign. All right. Well, I think we're going to take a brief moment here. We're going to move away from the questions, and we're going to clear our minds and think about the people who came before us, who gave their lives possibly heroically, possibly not heroically, in order to make the world a better place for all of us. So we're going to sit back, toss another log onto the funeral pyre. So this one was submitted by Reddit user I Sank Atlantis.
Good job.
Yes. So I Sank Atlantis said, I usually only DM, so my most memorable PC death was definitely the gruesome end of my party's gunslinger. Ooh. They were exterminating a cult of hillbilly were-crocodiles.
What?
See, this is why I wanted these stories. for sentences that start out with cult of hillbilly were-crocodiles.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry. They were exterminating a cult of hillbilly were-crocodiles and their mutant offspring in an underwater cave system. In the final battle against the Blood Hag cult leader and her monstrous pet crocodile, the party was on their very last legs, and in an act of desperation, the gunslinger closed into melee range with his jammed pistol as an improvised club. The hag grappled him, and in her second round of grapple, she used her special ability, Face Peel. She rolled nearly max damage and doubled out his health, killing him instantly, just as our Valor Bard, who was silenced from a curse, clubbed her in the back of the head with his lute, finally killing her.
Oh my goodness.
The gunslinger returned as a revenant, though his face did not.
Oh my gosh.
So we pretty much have Red Skull the Masked Gunslinger.
Is that face peel ability that's part of her hillbilly class?
Oh, maybe.
That sounds pretty gruesome.
Yes, it does. Very, very much so.
Oh my goodness.
So,
hillbilly were-crocodiles. That's amazing.
That's a great sentence right there. Great phrase. All right, so we're going to raise a glass in memory of Red Skull the Masked Gunslinger. Clink. All right. If anybody wanted to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're also on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating to us, we have a PayPal donate button on our website. Anything you can give us would go towards making the podcast better. Jeff, do you have anything to tell us about FredQuest?
FriendQuest should be having some new episodes pretty soon.
Cool.
A couple of them. We were hoping to have more, but technical issues, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we can always record more, but it'll just be a little while before they come out.
Yep.
Okay, if you head over to audibletrial.com/conflict, you can get yourself a free audiobook. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from. I guarantee you can find something you like 100% for free. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
stay out of the hillbilly crocodile cave. Okay. Don't get your face peeled.
Don't get your face peeled.
That's it.
That's the lesson right there.
Yeah, bye everybody.
All right.